Everyone thinks they know Americans. Loud, proud, fast food-fueled, and freedom-obsessed. But what if most of that isn't even close? Let's take a closer look. It's about to get weird. 1. The stereotype that all Americans drive massive pickup trucks might make you picture everyone cruising around in monster-sized Fords with truck nuts and bald eagle decals. And sure, head to Texas or rural Montana, and you'll see trucks big enough to tow a small planet. But in big cities, not so much. Good luck parallel parking a lifted Ram 3500 in downtown Boston without taking out a fire hydrant. In urban areas, you're way more likely to see compact cars, hybrids, or someone on a scooter trying not to die in traffic. Pickups are a cultural staple, especially in areas where hauling stuff is part of daily life. But not every American is rolling coal on their way to Whole Foods. Sometimes it's just a Prius in a dream. 2. The idea that Americans think they invented everything is, well, only half wrong. Yes, the US has given the world a bunch of big things. Jazz, the internet, the modern airplane, and reality TV. We're sorry about that last one. But most Americans aren't walking around thinking they personally created electricity. Many appreciate international innovations like sushi, espresso, and the miracle that is Wi-Fi on trains. Still, there's a bit of a habit here of rebranding stuff and acting like it's brand new. Take freedom fries, for example, or calling football soccer and acting confused when the rest of the world disagrees. So while Americans don't literally think they invented everything, they do tend to package things like they did. It's all part of the branding, baby. 3. The whole country walking around saying dude, bro, and yo? Not quite. Slang in the US is like barbecue sauce. Regional, spicy, and occasionally incomprehensible. Sure, in California, dude is practically punctuation. In New York, it's more like yo or fam. Down south, you'll hear y'all more than your own name. And in Boston, someone might call you wicked smart while sounding like they're chewing on vowels. American slang is incredibly diverse, shaped by geography, culture, subcultures, and the internet. So while bro culture is real and often found in gym locker rooms, not everyone's talking like they're in a frat house. Unless they are in a frat house. 4. Strange laws in America. Oh, absolutely. This country is a goldmine of legal nonsense. In Alabama, it's illegal to wear a fake mustache in church if it causes laughter. That's right. God may forgive, but the sheriff won't if your dollar store disguise gets a chuckle. Want more? In Arizona, it's illegal for a donkey to sleep in a bathtub. In Georgia, you can't eat fried chicken with a fork. Somewhere, there's a lawmaker who woke up one day and said, "Enough is enough. These bathtubs are for people." Honestly, it's like lawmakers were bored one afternoon and decided to prank future generations. So yes, Americans have freedom, but apparently not the freedom to commit facial hair-based comedy during worship. 5. It's easy to assume Americans only care about their own sports. NFL, NBA, MLB, rinse, repeat. And yeah, American football basically owns Sundays here. But the love for sports isn't only domestic. Soccer, or football, depending on how mad you want to make a European, has been gaining serious traction in the US, especially with the rise of Major League Soccer and international tournaments. The World Cup now draws millions of US viewers. Plus, plenty of Americans are glued to Formula One, cricket, and even rugby, especially the ones who stay up until 3 a.m. watching games in other time zones and tweeting like their life depends on it. So while local sports still dominate, Americans are increasingly becoming global fans. We just reserve the right to call it soccer and defend it to the death. 6. Bacon has developed a cult following in the US that's honestly kind of impressive. It's been turned into everything from candles to toothpaste. Yes, bacon-flavored toothpaste. But while bacon is a beloved breakfast staple, the idea that Americans put it on literally everything is more marketing myth than kitchen reality. Most people aren't adding bacon to their cereal or brushing it on their salad like glitter. And let's not forget the millions of vegetarians, vegans, and health-conscious folks who treat bacon like it's edible sin. So yeah, bacon's popular, but it's not the national currency yet. 7. The idea that all Americans are hyper-individualists who only care about me, myself, and I is more stereotype than truth. Sure, American culture celebrates independence, self-reliance, and that pull yourself up by your bootstraps narrative that sounds great until you realize boots don't actually work that way. But the US is also full of community-focused people, neighbors who shovel each other's driveways, volunteers at food banks, and folks who will start a GoFundMe for a stranger's vet bill. So while the myth of rugged individualism is alive and well, don't be fooled. Plenty of Americans still believe in lending a hand, or at least bringing over a casserole when you're going through it. 8. Tailgating is like a pre-game religion in the US, especially at football games. Imagine parking lots transformed into pop-up festivals, grills blazing, coolers packed, music blasting, and someone inevitably yelling, "Go team," while wearing face paint. It's half cookout, half competitive eating contest, and 100% cultural experience. But here's the catch. Not everyone does it. If you're not into sports or don't own a truck with a fold-out table and a Bluetooth speaker, you might never tailgate at all. Still, for sports fans, especially in college towns or football-crazed cities, tailgating isn't just a hobby. It's a lifestyle. Bonus points if someone brings bacon-wrapped anything. 9. The stereotype that Americans only speak English exists because, well, a lot of Americans do only speak English. But here's the full picture. The US is home to a massive Spanish-speaking population, plus communities that speak Chinese, Tagalog, Vietnamese, Arabic, Haitian Creole, and dozens more. In many cities, it's completely normal to hear multiple languages in a single grocery store aisle. Bilingualism is growing, especially among younger generations and immigrant families. So while America isn't exactly known for its stellar language education, don't assume it's a monolingual island. Some people can curse you out in 3 languages, politely, of course. 10. Everyone in California is a surfer, right? They're all tanned, chilled out, and casually riding waves before brunch. That's the fantasy. The reality? Most Californians are stuck in traffic, too busy with work or live hours away from the nearest beach. Sure, surfing is a big part of the coastal culture, especially in places like Huntington Beach or Santa Cruz, but that doesn't mean every Californian has a surfboard in their garage. Some have never even been in the ocean. Others are too afraid of sharks, jellyfish, or just cold water. So while surf culture is iconic, don't assume every Californian is living out a Beach Boys song. Most are just trying to afford rent. 11. Thanksgiving is one of the most iconic American holidays. Cue the turkey, mashed potatoes, and an awkward political debate with your uncle. But not everyone celebrates it the same way. Some people throw massive family feasts with 20 side dishes and decorative gourds. Others microwave a frozen dinner and binge-watch football alone in sweatpants. And yes, some skip it entirely, whether for cultural, personal, or "I just don't like turkey" reasons. While the holiday is technically widespread, the how and why varies wildly. One person's cherished tradition is another person's excuse to nap through the afternoon with pie crumbs on their chest. America, united by gravy, divided by cranberry sauce. 12. The stereotype that Americans don't care about history usually comes from viral videos where someone thinks World War II happened in the 1800s. And okay, some people couldn't name 3 presidents if you paid them in tacos. But don't confuse that with national amnesia. American history is taught extensively in schools, sometimes too extensively, depending on your state, and many Americans are deeply interested in the past, especially when it ties into their heritage or politics. Sure, world history might get a little glossed over, but with documentaries, podcasts, and the occasional TikTok historian, more people are diving into global history than ever. Just maybe don't ask random strangers to point out Mongolia on a map. 13. Big trucks are practically a cultural icon in America. Lifted, chromed out, and loud enough to startle wildlife in 3 counties. They're everywhere in rural areas, construction sites, and country music videos. But the idea that every American drives a truck? Not even close. In cities and suburbs, hybrids, sedans, and electric vehicles are gaining serious traction. Teslas are the new flex, and you'll find just as many people comparing their MPG as their horsepower. Environmental awareness, rising gas prices, and the simple fact that parallel parking a monster truck is a nightmare are shifting the trend. So while big trucks still have their fan base, they're now sharing the road with a lot more quiet, eco-friendly competition. 14. The Fast and Furious franchise may be big in the US, but not every American dreams of drifting into a parking spot. Yes, there are plenty of car enthusiasts who love horsepower, custom mods, and engines that growl like a caffeinated lion. But most people just want something that doesn't break down and gets decent mileage. For every street racer, there's someone proudly driving a 12-year-old Corolla they call Betsy. Priorities have shifted. Safety, fuel efficiency, and not having to refinance your house for a new transmission are what many Americans look for. So while fast cars are part of the dream, practicality often wins the race. 15. The great American outdoors, with its national parks, hiking trails, and campfire s'mores, does have a loyal following. There are plenty of folks who live for camping, fishing, hiking, and sleeping in tents that cost more than hotel rooms. But let's be honest, not everyone's idea of fun includes bugs, bears, or pooping in the woods. For a large part of the population, roughing it means the Airbnb doesn't have Wi-Fi. While outdoor adventures are a beloved pastime for many, there's an equally strong contingent of Americans whose idea of nature is watching Planet Earth on Netflix from the comfort of an air-conditioned living room. Both are valid. Only one includes bug spray. 16. Americans and their military. It's a bond that runs deep. The US doesn't just have one of the biggest militaries in the world. It celebrates it with parades, stadium flyovers, camo-themed everything, and anthems that could make bald eagles cry. Especially on Memorial Day or Veterans Day, the sense of pride is strong and support for service members is a major part of national identity. But that doesn't mean every American is waving flags and blasting Top Gun soundtracks year-round. Views on military policy, spending, and foreign involvement vary wildly. Still, one thing's for sure. If you badmouth veterans in the wrong bar, you might leave wearing your drink. 17. Saying Americans don't care about the environment is like saying no one recycles in California. It's just not true. Yes, the US has had its share of environmental missteps. Looking at you, plastic straws, and abandoned shopping carts. But there's a growing movement of eco-conscious citizens making serious changes. From composting and solar panels to zero-waste lifestyles and electric cars, sustainability is trending hard. There are still skeptics and corporations trying to greenwash their way into your wallet. But more Americans are waking up to climate issues and taking action. So no, it's not a nation of climate deniers drowning in plastic. It's more like a nation trying to do better, one reusable tote bag at a time. 18. The idea that Americans chug sugary soda 24/7 might have been true in the early 2000s, when 64-ounce fountain drinks were sold like liquid candy bars. But these days, it's not quite the national sugar bath it used to be. Sure, soda's still popular, especially with fast food, but more people are switching to alternatives like sparkling water, iced tea, kombucha, and the holy grail of caffeine: coffee. Lots of coffee. Cold brew, nitro, oat milk lattes. It's practically a sport. And let's not forget the rise of healthier sodas that taste like regret with a splash of stevia. So while soda remains a classic, it's no longer the only drink in the fridge. 19. Once upon a time, American shopping malls were temples of teen life, food courts, and escalator-based drama. And while they're still around, shout out to the 5 people keeping JCPenney alive, their glory days have faded a bit. Online shopping is king now. You can buy socks, a TV, and a garden gnome at 3 a.m. without leaving your couch. That said, malls are still great for walking when it's cold, people watching, or getting your steps in while pretending you're just browsing. So no, not every American is hanging out at the mall like it's 1998, but they haven't gone extinct either. They're just evolving into climate-controlled nostalgia zones with surprisingly good pretzels. 20. Think Hollywood is all glam and red carpets? Let's burst that glittery bubble. Unless your dream includes overpriced parking, crowds, and a faint smell of churros mixed with disappointment, Hollywood Boulevard will probably surprise you, in the wrong way. Sure, there are movie studios, celebrity home tours, and the occasional premiere, but it's not like actors are handing out Oscars on the sidewalk. Most locals avoid the tourist-heavy areas like the plague. And those stars on the Walk of Fame? Covered in spilled soda and souvenir stand flyers. Hollywood is more gritty than glitzy, but hey, if you squint hard enough and ignore the guy in the Spider-Man costume vaping outside a souvenir shop, the magic's still kinda there. 21. The image of America being filled with doctors and lawyers in designer suits sipping overpriced lattes is, well, a little exaggerated. Yes, there are a lot of professionals in medicine and law, especially considering how many TV shows are about them. But they're just one slice of the workforce pie. America runs on a wildly diverse range of jobs. Teachers, construction workers, artists, engineers, delivery drivers, nurses, baristas, mechanics, you name it. Not everyone is dreaming of med school or passing the bar. Some folks just want to open a taco truck or design video games in their pajamas. So no, America isn't wall-to-wall Harvard grads, but it is full of people doing every imaginable job under the sun, and a few that probably shouldn't exist. 22. It's easy to think Americans don't know much about other cultures when you see someone calling every language that's not English Spanish. But let's give a little credit where it's due. The US is one of the most culturally diverse countries on the planet. In big cities, you can eat Ethiopian for lunch, visit a Korean market, and hit up a Puerto Rican festival, all in the same afternoon. Do some Americans still think Europe is a city? Unfortunately, yes. But many grow up surrounded by different customs, languages, and foods, especially in immigrant-rich areas. So while cultural ignorance exists, so does curiosity, celebration, and the kind of fusion you only get when everybody brings their grandma's cooking to the party. 23. Everyone in America lives in a massive city with towering skyscrapers and 24/7 takeout, right? Wrong. While big cities like New York, LA, and Chicago get all the media attention, much of America actually lives in small towns, suburbs, and rural areas where the closest Starbucks might be a 30-minute drive, on a tractor. These places have main streets, local diners, and that one guy who knows everyone's business. It's a different pace of life, one that doesn't involve rush hour or overpriced parking garages. So while city life is a big part of the American story, it's far from the only chapter. 24. It's hard to argue with this one. Americans really love their pets. Whether it's dogs in strollers, cats with Instagram accounts, or someone casually mentioning their emotional support hedgehog, pets are part of the family here. About 70% of US households have a pet, and some people spend more on their dog's wardrobe than their own. But not every American has a furry friend. Some live in no-pet apartments, travel too much, or are still recovering from that childhood hamster trauma. Still, walk through any neighborhood, and you'll probably see someone with a leash, a poop bag, and a treat pouch that costs more than your lunch. 25. The idea that all Americans are rich comes from Hollywood, influencers, and those insane houses you see on YouTube with their own bowling alleys. But the truth? Most Americans are not rolling in luxury cars and gold-plated cereal bowls. Yes, the US has wealth, and a lot of it. But it also has massive income inequality, rising housing costs, and millions of people working 2 jobs just to stay afloat. For every millionaire, there's someone Googling how to make ramen taste fancy. So while the rich exist, they don't represent the average American experience. Most people are just trying to pay rent, get decent Wi-Fi, and avoid surprise medical bills. Living the dream, right? 26. The idea that all Americans are loud might have come from overhearing one in an airport 3 terminals away. But hey, it's not always rudeness, it's enthusiasm. Blame the coffee, the high fructose corn syrup, or just the fact that Americans are raised to speak up and make your voice heard, even if it's just to order a latte. That said, not every American is out here yelling their opinions into the void. Some are chill, quiet, and wouldn't raise their voice even if their house was on fire. So yeah, Americans can be loud, but it's not volume for volume's sake. It's just passion. Loud, caffeinated passion. 27. The stereotype that Americans don't care about the rest of the world probably comes from some unfortunate interview clips and late-night comedy bits. And sure, there are folks who think international news means a celebrity vacationing in Italy. But with the internet, global travel, and a healthy dose of doom scrolling, more and more Americans are plugged into world events than ever. Social media, podcasts, and online news have opened the borders. Digitally, at least. So while some Americans still couldn't find Canada on a map, others are following foreign elections like it's their local fantasy football league. It's not apathy. It's just occasionally selective interest. 28. Do some Americans act like the US is the whole world? Yeah, especially when they call the MLB championship the World Series, despite only involving North American teams. But it's not always arrogance. Sometimes it's just geography. The US is huge, and it's easy to get caught up in domestic everything. Plus, did you know only about 20% of Americans have passports? That's not exactly screaming global citizen. But things are changing. More young Americans are traveling, learning languages, and realizing that yes, there are other countries, and no, they don't all celebrate the 4th of July. Baby steps. 29. The US might seem like it's run by extroverts, loud salespeople, motivational speakers, and people doing TikTok dances in public. But introverts are alive and well here too. They're just quietly thriving. American culture tends to reward big personalities, but plenty of folks would rather be at home, petting their dog and pretending they're not home when the doorbell rings. From bookworms to gamers to people who mysteriously vanish right after a Zoom call ends, introverts are everywhere. They just don't announce it. So no, not all Americans are party animals. Some of us are just trying to get through life without making small talk in the grocery store. 30. Contrary to popular belief, not every American sounds like they walked off the set of Duck Dynasty. Southern accents are just one flavor of a very large and very regional buffet. From the sharp, fast-talking vibes of New Yorkers to the surfer drawl of Californians, or the Midwest's love of flattening vowels. Oh yeah, for sure. American English is loaded with variation. There's even a distinct news anchor accent used on TV that's basically a blend of nothing, so no one gets offended. So while Southern accents are charming, they're just one voice in a national mixtape. And yes, we do make fun of each other's accents, constantly. It's basically a love language. 31. Americans being super patriotic is one of those stereotypes that's kind of true, but it comes in layers. Yes, there are people who go all out on the 4th of July with fireworks, flag capes, and red, white, and blue everything, including Jell-O somehow. You'll find flags in front yards, on bumper stickers, even on socks. But at the same time, there's a big population of Americans who express their love for the country by criticizing it, loudly. Patriotism here isn't always about blind loyalty. It's often about pushing for change, calling out injustice, and asking, can we maybe chill with the bald eagle tattoos? So yes, patriotism is strong, just not always in the same flavor. 32. The idea that Americans are obsessed with money probably comes from the fact that capitalism is practically engraved on the national flag. From Shark Tank to motivational hustle quotes on Etsy, chasing the bag is definitely part of the culture. But not everyone's trying to become a billionaire or retire at 30 with a crypto empire. Many Americans are just trying to afford groceries, maybe go on vacation once a year, and keep the lights on without crying at the electric bill. So while the drive for success is real, it's not all greed and gold chains. Sometimes it's just trying to pay rent before the second reminder email. 33. Not every American is out here trying to be the next Kardashian or Elon Musk. Sure, wealth and fame get a lot of attention. Instagram, reality TV, and Hollywood practically worship it. But most people aren't chasing red carpets. They just want a decent life. Steady job, family, maybe a house with a backyard if the market ever chills out. For many, making it means stability, not a private jet. And let's be honest, being rich and famous in America comes with a terrifying amount of tabloid drama and strangers on the internet telling you how to live. Some folks are happy just staying low-key and not having TMZ know where they buy their coffee. 34. The stereotype that Americans are always late might be true if you've only ever seen them at parties. But in general, Americans actually hate being late, especially when it comes to work, interviews, or appointments. Punctuality is often tied to professionalism here, and being even 10 minutes late to something important can set off a full-blown guilt spiral. Now, if it's brunch with friends or a casual hangout, sure, there's wiggle room. But show up 20 minutes late to a business meeting without texting, and you might as well have committed a felony. So no, we're not all on American time. Some of us set alarms for our alarms. 35. Walk-in closets. The myth, the legend, and yes, the occasional reality. In many suburban American homes, massive closets are a legit selling point. Big enough to store a small wardrobe or hide from your responsibilities. But not everyone lives like they're in an HGTV dream home. In cities, closet space is a hot commodity. Some people have to choose between hanging clothes or storing their vacuum. Others are using IKEA hacks just to hang more than 5 shirts. So while huge closets exist, and we envy them, not all Americans are living that luxury life. Some are just hoping their coat rack doesn't collapse again. 36. The stereotype that every American owns a gun paints a picture of the US as one giant Wild West shootout. But the reality is a bit more complicated. Yes, guns are a big part of American culture, and the country does have more civilian-owned firearms than any other. In some states, owning a gun is as normal as owning a lawnmower. But not everyone is packing heat. In fact, gun ownership varies a lot by region, lifestyle, and personal beliefs. Plenty of Americans have never touched a gun in their lives and wouldn't know the safety switch from a shoelace. So, while firearms are definitely woven into the culture, don't assume every American has one under their pillow. Unless you're in Texas, then maybe ask first. 37. Sports in America are everywhere. From Friday night high school football games to the Super Bowl being treated like a national holiday. But are all Americans obsessed? Not quite. For every person painting their face and yelling at the TV like they're coaching the team, there's someone binge-watching a baking show or leveling up in an online game. Some Americans just don't care who wins what, as long as someone brings snacks. So while sports have a massive following here, it's not mandatory. There are whole communities of Americans who couldn't tell you the rules of baseball, but can give you a 10-minute breakdown of why their favorite Netflix character deserved better. 38. Suburbia might be the classic American image. White picket fences, 2-car garages, and neighbors who borrow sugar, but it's far from the whole story. Millions of Americans live in bustling cities, rural farmland, coastal towns, desert communities, mountain cabins, and everything in between. In fact, some people actively avoid the suburbs because they're not fans of HOAs or conversations about mulch. The US is so geographically massive and varied that living environments range from studio apartments the size of closets to off-grid cabins with solar panels and a goat. So no, not everyone lives in the suburbs, though they all seem to have a target within driving distance. 39. While country music might be the unofficial soundtrack of pickup trucks and backyard barbecues in certain parts of the US, it's definitely not the only genre blasting from speakers across the country. Hip-hop, pop, EDM, indie, jazz, rock, metal, you name it, there's a fan base for it. Music in the US is incredibly diverse, and what you hear depends a lot on where you are. In Nashville, expect twang. In Brooklyn, expect beats. In Portland, you might hear someone playing the saw. So yes, country music is huge, especially in the South and Midwest, but it's far from a national mandate. Some Americans have never heard a Luke Bryan song and plan to keep it that way. 40. Fast food in America go together like burgers and fries. Convenient, satisfying, and maybe a little too easy to rely on. With drive-thrus on nearly every corner and dollar menus tempting wallets everywhere, it's no wonder the stereotype exists. But not every American is living on Big Macs and curly fries. There's a growing obsession with clean eating, plant-based diets, and local farm-to-table menus. Some folks treat fast food as a guilty pleasure, others as a once-a-week indulgence, and yes, some as breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But the idea that everyone's scarfing down burgers daily? That's just a tasty myth. Sometimes it's a salad, followed by fries. For balance. 41. The idea that all Americans love guns is like saying all Italians ride Vespas. It's flashy, but not exactly accurate. Yes, gun culture is a massive part of American life in many regions, with hunting, sport shooting, and home defense being common reasons for ownership. But there's also a significant portion of the population that doesn't own guns and actively supports stricter gun laws. In fact, debates over gun control are some of the most heated topics in the country. So while rifles and handguns might be normal in some households, others wouldn't touch one if it came with a coupon for free pizza. America loves freedom, but not always the same kind. 42. Apple products may have a cult following in the US, but let's not pretend the entire population is walking around with glowing apples in their pockets. Sure, iPhones, MacBooks, and AirPods are everywhere, especially in coffee shops. But there's still a strong Team Android out there, fiercely defending their customizable features and headphone jacks. And when it comes to computers, plenty of Americans prefer PCs, especially for gaming or not wanting to sell a kidney for a laptop. The Apple versus Android war is real, and Americans are deeply loyal to their tech choices. It's basically modern-day tribalism, but with software updates. 43. If you think Americans are all the same, you've clearly never met more than two of them. The US is one of the most culturally, ethnically, and ideologically diverse countries in the world. From New England fishermen to Southern farmers, Silicon Valley techies to Midwestern teachers, first-generation immigrants to native communities, it's impossible to lump everyone into one identity. Even accents, food, fashion, and slang vary wildly from one state to another. So no, Americans aren't one big uniform crowd. They're more like a chaotic group project where everyone brought their own snacks and no one agreed on the PowerPoint theme. 44. The fantasy of every American lounging beside their backyard pool like it's a scene from Baywatch is just that, a fantasy. Pools are common in sunny states like Florida, Arizona, and California, where summer lasts 11 months and sweating is a lifestyle. But for much of the country, having a personal pool is expensive, impractical, or just downright pointless when you only get 3 months of warmth a year. Instead, public pools, local lakes, or inflatable kiddie pools in the driveway do the trick. So while pool ownership is definitely a status symbol in some neighborhoods, most Americans are surviving summer with a fan, some ice, and a dream. 45. The idea that Americans only eat junk food probably comes from the abundance of commercials featuring cheeseburgers oozing in slow motion and snacks with enough preservatives to survive a nuclear winter. But the truth? America has one of the largest health food markets in the world. Organic, keto, vegan, gluten-free, Whole30. Americans are really into clean eating trends and arguing about them online. Sure, fast food is everywhere and the temptation is real, but not everyone's running on soda and chips. You'll find people meal prepping quinoa bowls, blending spinach smoothies, and drinking water with activated charcoal. So while junk food is easy to find, so is kale. And sometimes, weirdly, they're both in the same shopping cart. 46. Americans being obsessed with work isn't just a stereotype. It's practically an unofficial national motto. The hustle, the grind, the "I'll sleep when I'm dead" energy. It's real. Many Americans wear overwork like a badge of honor, proudly surviving on caffeine and minimal PTO. But even the most die-hard workaholics dream of escaping to a beach someday. They just don't always do it. The culture values productivity, sure, but burnout is catching up, and more people are finally saying, hey, maybe I shouldn't check emails at 11 p.m. So yeah, Americans hustle hard, but the rest revolution is slowly gaining ground. Emphasis on slowly. 47. The image of a classic American breakfast, stacked pancakes, bacon, eggs, hash browns, and a side of regret is iconic. But the truth? Most Americans don't have time for that. Weekday mornings look more like a blur of spilled coffee, half-toasted bagels, and someone eating a protein bar while stuck in traffic. Big breakfasts do exist, especially on weekends or road trips, but Monday through Friday? It's survival mode. So while the greasy diner breakfast lives on in movies and Instagram brunch pics, the real MVP of American mornings is a to-go cup and the eternal hope that traffic won't be awful. 48. Have a nice day might be the most American thing you can say to someone while handing them a receipt. It's cheerful, polite, and often completely automatic. Whether you're at a grocery store, drive-thru, or awkward elevator ride, it's the go-to sign-off. regardless of whether anyone's actually having a nice day. It's not fake, it's just socially pre-installed. Think of it as verbal duct tape. It smooths over transactions, ends conversations, and fills awkward silences. So yes, Americans say it all the time. Do they always mean it? Let's just say the words are friendly, even if the smile is running on caffeine and customer service trauma. 49. Sure, America is the land of Hollywood dreams and TikTok fame, but not everyone's out here chasing red carpets and endorsement deals. Most Americans just want to pay their bills, have decent Wi-Fi, and maybe get more than 12 likes on a vacation photo. Fame might be attractive to some, but for others it sounds like a nightmare wrapped in paparazzi and privacy invasions. And let's be honest, being famous in 2025 means dealing with comment sections, cancel culture, and people analyzing your lunch choices. So while fame has its appeal, the real American dream, comfort, stability, and maybe a mildly viral cat video. So, how many of these stereotypes did you believe before today? Be honest, we won't judge. Much? Drop your favorite or